Hey everybody, welcome back to the Grumpy Guys channel. I am the Grumpy Guy. Sorry it's taking me so long to post the next video. And the reason why it's taking me so long is because you've had President Trump released his tax reform policy this past week. And it's taken me a few days to actually do the research, to go over everything, and to make sure that everything that I had the facts. I had facts behind me to try to explain this to everybody. Now, you've got people on the right saying this is a really great thing. You have people on the left saying this is a really bad thing. You've got the mainstream media, of course, they hate everything Trump does. So, of course, they bash the hell out of it. So I wanted to do my own due diligence and actually study it. Study what President Trump announced, what still needs to be done to it, and is this going to be a good thing, a bad thing? Is this a tax cut for the wealthy, like the Democrats say, or is this actually a tax cut for the middle class, like the president says? So I actually did a lot of research this past week over the last few days, and found out some very interesting information. So let's get right into it. Currently we are sitting at 7 tax brackets, and President Trump wants to bring it down to 3. So here we go. Right now we're at 7 tax brackets. They want to bring it down to 3 individual income rates: the 35%, 25%, and 12%. There will be, it doubles the standard deduction rate. So middle class is going to, and lower class is going to see the standard deduction is actually going to be doubled. That's going to help them out a lot, get more money back in their pocket. It's also going to expand the child credit. So people who have children, you're actually going to get more money per child back on your taxes. President Trump announced also that the single taxpayer will not pay any taxes on the first $12,000 they make. Married couples, you'll pay no taxes on the first $24,000 you make. That's going to put more money back in your pocket because you're not paying taxes on that money. So that'll be more money back in your pocket where you can actually spend it how you see fit. Also, they're going to end the alternative minimum tax and the estate or death tax. We're going to go into that too. Corporate tax rate goes from 35% down to 20%. President Trump really wanted 15%. Worldwide average, this is something I didn't find on my research here. Worldwide average corporate tax rate worldwide is 22.5%. Right now we're sitting at 35%. So you can see why a lot of businesses didn't want to have their businesses located in America. Well, why? That's higher taxes we have to pay. So we're knocking down to 20%, but just a little bit under the worldwide average. Repatriation rate. They want to have a one-time tax for all these corporations to bring their money back into the United States and at a one-time tax. Instead of at 35%, they're really wanting it at like 15 or 17%. Just a one-time tax to bring your money back into America. And of course, I'm going to go over all this stuff with you. I'm going to explain everything to you. Okay. Businesses that face higher tax rates, let's see. Businesses that face higher tax rates, they get passed on to you. The corporations, for the most part, don't pay any taxes at all due to, you got tax breaks, you got loopholes, you got special the lobbyists that are constantly trying to get more and more breaks for this sector of the businesses or this sector. What this does is it cancels out all loopholes. There'll be no more loopholes, period. None. It'll be a flat rate and that's it. and you're going to pay your rate, and that's it. There won't be any any more tax breaks, any more loopholes. It cuts all of them out. Repatriation. Oh, wait a minute. If this gets passed by the Congress, you'll have that one flat rate of 20% for all businesses. Repatriation. Repatriation is where you've got businesses that have money that's in banks overseas. Well, we want to bring that back to America. They said it's estimated there's $2 trillion that they're wanting to get back into the United States. $2 trillion. And at a tax rate of 15 to 17%, you see how the government's going to get a lot of money off that if we get that money back in the United States. Let's see. Now, businesses who earn this money, they're not. Now, the businesses that get this money back into the United States are going to use that money in the United States. Now, when businesses have more money to spend, they don't just bank it all. Okay, it goes back into the business because businesses want to grow. They want to make more money. How do they do that? They update the old factories. They build new factories. They expand their product line. Things of this nature. Now, when that happens, that actually creates more jobs, right? If they're going to update, for example, Webco in Sand Springs, Oklahoma expanded. And when they did that, they expanded one of the current factories. That created like 100 new jobs at that one location. Then they wanted to expand their product line. Well, to do that, they actually had to build a whole new factory. That created another 600 new jobs right on the street. Businesses want to put more money back into their business because that's how their business grows. No business wants to just stay stagnant. No business just wants to make, we're only going to make this much per year, blah, 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 blah. No. Especially if they're a public traded company. They want to be able to expand, make more money. They have got stockholders and board of directors they have to answer to. They want to see their profits increase. And how they do that, they put more money into the business because the bottom line is to make money, you have to spend money. More businesses put more money back into their businesses. That creates more jobs. Okay. Now, I'm going to read you two quotes. Because, like I said, I did my due diligence. I looked at both sides of the aisle. I researched with the IRS.com. You can go on there and actually pull up some of this information. It was pretty interesting. So, here's a quote. Chuck Schumer, who is the Senate Majority Leader for the Democrats, so I'd be the Senate Minority Leader because they're not in power in the Senate, said, quote, under this plan, the wealthiest of Americans and corporations make out like bandits, while middle-class Americans are left holding the bag. Nancy Pelosi, who is the Congresswoman from California, San Francisco, I believe, area, said, this is a swindle of the American people. Selling this is the same blueprint the failed trickle-down Bush tax cuts for the rich that didn't create jobs and only increased the deficit. So, let's look at each one of those quotes and see if they have any merit. Schumer said under this tax plan, the wealthiest of America's corporations are making out like bandits, while the middle class are left holding the bag. The first part of the tax plan, is that the lowest are only paying 12%. So I did a little research to find out if Mr. Schumer was correct. So this is what I found out. Let's see. And here are the numbers, and this is from the IRS in 2014. The top 1% of Americans pay 39.5% of all income tax paid to the federal government every year. The top 10% pay a total of 70% of all the tax money paid that year to the IRS. The bottom 50% only pay 2.8% of all the federal tax money that's paid, and that was in 2014. 35% of all the tax filers paid 0%. They paid zero. So, like my paycheck, right? I know that if I pay, let's see, where did it go? Okay, I pay in, say, they're taking out, let's say $50 a week out of my paycheck every week in just federal taxes. I know at the end of the year when I go to file, I get all that money back. If I had a child, I would get all that money back plus, well, I believe it was $2,500 per child. Well, under this new plan, I'm not going to be taxed at such a higher rate. So instead of having $50 taken out of my paycheck every week, I'll only get $25 taken out of it. That's $25 more in my pocket, right? 4 weeks out of the month, or 4.3, so you're looking at a little over $100 a month extra in my pocket, which is great because it goes to help pay bills, and I like to spend money. Those of you who know me know that I can spend money pretty good. Okay, so, but I can get that money back at the end of the year, but I'm not going to be paying at a higher rate anymore. Now, Chuck Schumer, or Nancy Pelosi said, and I quote, where'd she go? Right here. "This is a swindle of the American people. Selling this the same blueprint of the failed trickle-down Bush tax cuts for the rich that didn't create jobs." Okay, let me reread that. "This is a swindle of the American people. Selling this is the same blueprint for the failed trickle-down Bush tax cuts for the rich that did not create jobs and only increased the deficit." Did some research. This is what I found. There's actually 2 presidents who did massive tax cuts. President Kennedy was the first one. When President Kennedy did it, it boosted the economy, boomed it. We had massive amounts of job creation. The middle class was in a lot better place than it was just prior to that. And then I actually have numbers for President Reagan because, I'm a Reagan guy. He's the reason why I'm a Republican, and my father hates the reason why I'm a Republican. Okay, where'd it go? Here we go. Reagan tax plan. The Reagan tax plan cut the top personal income tax from 70% to 28%. It expanded the GDP growth. In 1984, the GDP hit 7.3%, which was the under President Reagan, the U.S. saw its longest peacetime growth in our nation's history up to that point. 1984. So that's 208 years. That was we hit 7.3% GDP in 1984. It created 20 million new jobs, and government revenues nearly doubled. Nearly doubled. That's massive. So, Miss Pelosi said that this trickle-down tax cuts that don't create jobs and only increase the deficit. Actually, Miss Pelosi, according to what happened what happened before with President Reagan in the 80s, our GDP growth bounced through the roof. It created 20 million new jobs, and the government revenues nearly doubled. Now, why did we have such a great economy while President Bush 41 was president, or when President Clinton was in office, it wasn't because of what the presidents were doing right then and there. Everyone, I mean, I want you to think about this, guys. It takes time for everything to finally settle in, for everything to take effect. Why did we not have a federal a deficit in 1999? Because of what they called back then Reaganomics. I remember being in high school and listening to Democrats complain about, oh, Reaganomics is killing our economy. It's killing our economy. No, it's not. It was just a talking point. It really was. Just like Senator Schumer and Ms. Pelosi are saying, no, this isn't what they're saying. Is not factually true. These tax cuts worked for President Kennedy and for President Reagan. So it amazes me that Democrats and the mainstream media, which we don't have any Walter Cronkites anymore. You don't have any more reporters that actually shoot straight down the middle, and you really don't know which side of the aisle they lay on. It seems like every single reporter out there now is just a commentator. They just tell you what they feel, how they act. And we all saw this with from going back from the last election, moving forward. We all saw it during when President Obama was in office as well. It didn't seem like they questioned him on anything, but and it really seems like the Democrats and the mainstream media are opposed to this, and I think the only reason why is because they just don't like Trump. They don't like President Trump. They don't want him to succeed. They want him to fail. They want all of his initiatives to fail. That's why they're doing this. So, black and white, folks. This really does. It really does show you. This could be really good this tax cut could be really good for the middle class. The first $12,000 you earn, you're not going to pay any taxes on it if you're a single person. If you're a married couple, the first $24,000 you earn. So if you're a married couple and you only bring home, say, $40,000 for the year, you're paying taxes on less than half of what you earn. And you're only paying it at a 12% rate, which is really low. Really low. Let me see if I can make sure I got all this stuff. So I also got some information. Let's see. I wanted to go over with you all about this, which pertains to this. This is just while President Obama was in office. This is what I found out, and I wanted to go over this. We have 13 million more people are on food stamps. 8 million more people are in poverty. 95 million people are out of the labor force. We have the lowest labor participation rate since the 1970s. The worst economic recovery since the 1940s. Lowest home ownership in 51 years. I'm 45. This is the lowest home ownership since before I was born. And he accumulated more debt than every other president. All of our presidents combined. That's massive. We've got, right now we have, let's see, like I said, $95 million, 95 million Americans are out of the workforce. They find that, whether it be on food stamps, you have 50 million are in poverty, 46 million are on food stamps. I don't know if they're working for commission-based only companies or working under the table, so they're not being taxed, or they're collecting state funds like food stamps and TANF, and they find that, hey, I can't go to work and make what I'm making, bring home what I'm making with on my food stamps and my TANF, and they're paying my rent and my electric and my gas, and I get $600 about the food stamps. I'm doing great. We eat steak and shrimp, whatever we want. So the numbers don't lie. You can have pundits, and make no mistake about it. I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican. I'm a constitutionalist. My father and I love to argue with each other. He is a Democrat. But the bottom line is, you look at the way the Republican Party is now compared to what it used to be, and the way the Democratic Party is now compared to the way that it used to be, you can see that more Americans are starting to lean more towards the right than the left. Why? Because it looks the Republican Party has changed. It's a completely different party. The Democratic Party is not my dad's party. It's not what it used to be. It's not how they were in even the 80s or the 90s or even in the 60s or 70s. It's completely changed. Completely changed. The Republican Party definitely is, it's a populist. It looks to be the party of the future for the working class. The bills that have been put in, that President Trump has put in, the bills that the House have passed, they passed three. Okay, this Congress hasn't passed any of the big stuff yet, but they passed over 300 bills since President Trump took office in January. If you look at the number of bills passed by any Congress, they are exceeded the number of bills that have been passed. And they're all gearing towards getting more Americans back in the labor force. Bottom line, folks, is this. The more people that we have actually going out and earning a living and working and paying taxes, the more money we have going back into the economy. When our economy is strong and there's jobs, folks, there's jobs. Trust me, if you don't think there's jobs, there's 18 million jobs right now available for anyone to become a truck driver. Trucking is has been for 10, 15 years in a massive crunch because they need more truck drivers. They can't find enough. The energy industry. I live, by the way the crow flies, 15 minutes, 20 minutes to Cushing, Oklahoma, where the Keystone Pipeline is. Jobs exploding on the pipeline like crazy. We've got to get more people back into the labor force. These tax cuts, the way that they were laid out, and by the research that I've done myself to make sure that I'm telling you the truth, that I'm not just spinning the right's version or the left's version or somewhere down the middle, from what I can tell, now Congress still has to figure out the numbers. That's one thing you have to understand. They still have to figure out the numbers. We don't have the numbers yet. We just have, this is the percentages that we want. Now, the CBO still has to score it. The House Ways and Means has to score it. They have to go over it. They have to figure out, put actual numbers to paper to figure out where a cutoff is going to be. Okay, are we going to have a cutoff at $70,000 per year for a married couple to be in that 12% bracket? Then the next bracket, I believe, was 25%. Is the cutoff for the 25% going to be someone who earns $250,000 or more a year? Where's the high bracket? The high bracket where they're going to be paying. Let me make sure I say it right, because I don't want to screw it up. Individual income rates: 35, 25, and 12. The House Ways and Means Committee still has to work out the numbers as far as who's going to qualify for each one of those rates. Now, obviously, the 12%, it's got to be somewhere below 12%. Obviously, married couple, single person. But who fits into that? Do they make $60,000 a year or less? $100,000 a year or less? And the 25% bracket, the middle bracket, that's the middle of the board. Is that going to cover people who make $100,000 to $250,000, or is that going to cover someone who makes $250,000 to $500,000? And then the high rate, the 35%, is this just for millionaires? Is this someone who makes $1 million or more a year, or is this going to be someone who makes $750,000 a year and up? So, and by getting rid of all of these loopholes and all of these other little problems it's ways for that the most middle class, lower class Americans or end up paying more than someone who makes just a little bit more than them, maybe like 15, 20, 25,000, 30,000 more than them, are actually paying less because there's loopholes in there. So they're getting rid of all those loopholes. They want to make sure that every single one of these rates, this is like a flat rate. You're paying this, nothing more. You have, there was more than, Americans paying almost a full $2 billion a year on tax services like H&R Block and Jackson Hewitt. People would actually, a CPA, someone would actually do their taxes for them. You're going to be able to do, 9 out of 10 Americans will be able to do their taxes themselves on a postcard. On a postcard, folks. How nice would it be to be able to do your taxes on a postcard in like just a couple minutes? I know I'd be happy that I don't have to go to Jackson Hewitt every year anymore. That'd be fantastic. So it gets rid of all that. Oh, one other thing that I didn't touch on that I really did want to explain was the estate tax, or what's called the quote-unquote death tax. Okay, so now you've got a lot of Americans who are probably noticed there's a skip in the video right there, something like that. We got a phone call I had to take. Okay, the estate tax, or the quote-unquote death tax. What this means is if you are a business owner and you die, you pay taxes on your business. You have every year, right? Well, what the federal government, when they instituted this estate tax, was that, say you, the business owner, has a child, in your will, you could will that business to your children, but when you died, before they took possession, they had to pay taxes on the estimated worth of your business. Folks, don't let anyone